Hey there. Ready to dive into some serious wealth building? We're not talking about your typical finance tips here. This is next level stuff. We're going straight to the strategies of the ultra wealthy, those high net worth individuals, the HNIs. Think of it as a peek behind the curtain, seeing how they invest and grow their fortunes. And luckily for us, we have our expert here to break it all down.
Absolutely.
So we're dissecting this interview with Mohit Gang, the founder of an ultra HNI investment firm, and he had some really interesting insights.
Yeah, he did.
Like, imagine this. You're 25 years old, you're making a pretty decent $50K a month,
Right.
and you've got this dream of becoming a millionaire. Where do you even begin?
Well, it's funny you should say that because Mohit actually says, forget about those risky investments, those get-rich-quick schemes early on. He says, stick to the basics. Put in 20% or more of your income consistently into those simple mutual funds.
Okay.
Like, think of it as building that really strong base camp before you even think about climbing that mountain of wealth.
Okay, so starting simple, building that foundation. I like it. He also mentioned this concept of a crore. That's 10 million rupees, right?
Exactly.
I mean, it just sounds like a lifetime away,
It does. It does. He uses crore as a very relatable milestone, though.
Yeah.
And sure, that first crore might take you around 15 years with disciplined investing, but here's where it gets really interesting. That's when the power of compounding really kicks in.
Yeah.
Think of it like an avalanche, Slow at first, then it gains momentum, the second core comes faster, and then boom, it just accelerates.
So patience is key here. This is more like a wealth marathon, not a sprint. But let's say you hit that first crore, then what? Do you just keep doing the same thing?
That's when things get even more interesting.
Yeah.
As your wealth grows, your strategies need to evolve. So you've built that solid foundation with mutual funds. Now you can consider exploring, the terrain of direct stock investing. And this is a big good, but only after you've gained some market experience, you understand your own personal risk tolerance. You don't want to start free climbing without the right gear.
Right, that's a good analogy. So
Yeah.
you've mastered the basics. Maybe you've even hit that 3 crore mark. What are some other peaks you can climb then?
Well, that's when you unlock things like portfolio management services.
Okay.
PMS, they call it. Imagine like having a personal Sherpa guide your investments.
Wow.
But of course, there's a minimum entry requirement, often around that 3 crore rupee mark.
3 crore, that's a significant chunk of change. It's not your everyday investment. So what about those with even deeper pockets? Let's say around 8 crores. What's available to them?
Now, you're talking about expeditions to the summit. We're talking about alternate investment funds or AIFs.
Yeah.
These are really exclusive. They've got higher entry points and often focus on very, very niche areas.
So are you saying there's this whole world of investing that most people don't even know exists?
Oh, absolutely.
Like, what are these ultra-rich doing up there that's so different?
Well, at those heights, you'll find things like unlisted and private equity investments, essentially getting in on the ground floor of companies before they go public.
Wow.
Then there's startup funding. You become a modern-day Medici backing the next big thing. You've even got credit investing through VC funds. It's a whole other level of sophisticated financing.
It sounds like a totally different game up there, but I remember Mohit also issued a word of caution about just blindly jumping into these unlisted investments.
Oh, absolutely he did. These are very high-risk, high-reward ventures.
Yeah.
You really need to understand the intricacies, be prepared for the very real possibility that things might not go as planned. It's not for the faint of heart, especially if you're less experienced.
He also mentioned this term, structured notes. What exactly are those?
Okay, so think of structured notes as custom-designed investment vehicles, and they're a favorite among ultra HNIs. Imagine this. You invest a certain amount, and your returns are directly linked to the performance of, say, the Nifty index.
So if the Nifty goes up, your returns go up even faster.
Exactly. They can be structured to potentially double, even triple your returns compared to a regular index fund.
Okay, so that sounds amazing, but what happens if the market takes a dive?
Well, that's where the structured part comes in. You get downside protection, usually capped at a certain percentage.
Okay.
Mohit actually gave an example where even if the Nifty were to take a major hit, your losses might be limited to, say, 20%.
So it's like having your cake and eating it too. You get to shoot for those massive returns, but you've got a safety net. Where do I sign up?
Well, not so fast. These aren't your everyday investments. The beauty of structured notes is their customization, but that comes at a price. We're talking a minimum investment of 10, maybe even 20 crore rupees. You're in the big leagues now.
It's incredible to even think about figures like that. It's not just about having more money, it's a whole different level of investing. But it makes you wonder, with all that wealth, what keeps these ultra H&Is up at night?
Well, that's where the game shifts from climbing higher to really securing what you've earned. Preservation and optimization become key. Taxes, for one, become a major, major consideration.
Right, because what's the point of reaching these financial peaks if you're just going to lose a huge chunk to taxes?
Exactly. So they're working with teams of advisors, legal experts, figuring out how to minimize those tax burdens, how to structure their wealth in the most advantageous way. You're talking trusts, estate planning, the whole nine yards.
It's interesting how the conversation shifts from how to get rich to how to stay rich once you reach a certain level. And speaking of staying rich, there's this whole buzz around passive income, especially with real estate. But Mohit seemed to have a different take on that.
Yeah, he did. A lot of people, they equate owning a rental property with passive income. But it's not always as passive as it seems.
Right, because you might be pulling in some rent every month, but then you have to factor in maintenance, property taxes, maybe you've got a difficult tenant, unexpected repairs.
Exactly. It often requires a lot more hands-on attention than people realize.
And that really ties into what Mohit was saying about true financial freedom. It's not just about owning a property or two. It's about generating enough passive income to exceed your active income, building a portfolio that works as hard as you do, maybe even harder, so you don't have to.
Exactly. Creating that system that supports the lifestyle you want without being chained to a 9 to 5.
Now you're talking. And speaking of supporting your lifestyle, we can't overlook something else Mohit highlighted: healthcare costs. And this is something that affects everyone, not just the ultra-wealthy. He actually painted a pretty stark picture about healthcare expenses, especially here in India.
He did. He gave this really, I guess you could say, chilling example. Imagine heart surgery today. It might cost, say, 5 lakh rupees.
Which is already a significant expense for most people.
Absolutely. But because of inflation, especially in healthcare, that same surgery, just 14 years down the line, could cost you a staggering 40 lakhs.
40 lakhs, that's 8 times the cost.
Ex-
That's a real eye-opener.
It is.
And it emphasizes what he was saying about the importance of having a plan for healthcare.
Absolutely. Having robust health insurance, a dedicated savings plan for potential medical expenses, that's crucial.
It makes you wonder, how does someone like Mukesh Ambani, with his level of wealth, how do they approach something like this?
Well, I mean, obviously we don't have access to the specifics of Ambani's financial strategies.
Right.
But it's safe to assume that his approach is incredibly, incredibly sophisticated.
Oh, I'm sure.
He likely has a dedicated team of advisors, utilizes multiple financial institutions, and you have to remember, his businesses are inherently a form of investment themselves.
Right, so it's like his businesses themselves are vehicles for both generating and managing wealth. It's fascinating.
Yeah, for someone at his level, acquisitions, strategic partnerships, even divestments, they all become part of this larger wealth management strategy.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, this deep dive has been incredible. It's been amazing to get a glimpse into how, the other half invest, the strategies they use. But for our listener who's tuned in today, what's the one big takeaway you want them to walk away with?
Now, I think the biggest takeaway, whether you're aiming for your first crore or your 10th, is that building wealth is a journey, right? It takes a long-term perspective, disciplined saving, and that willingness to kind of adapt your strategies as you climb higher.
Right.
And as Mohit emphasized, never, ever underestimate the importance of planning for the future, especially when it comes to healthcare costs.
So crucial, so important. Think of this deep dive as your base camp, your starting point for your own financial climb. What resonated with you today? What questions came up for you? What aspects of your own personal financial journey do you want to explore further? Keep those questions in mind as you continue to learn, as you continue to grow your own wealth. Remember, it's a marathon, not a sprint. And hey, you never know, maybe one day we'll be featuring your story right here on the deep dive. Until then, stay curious, and we'll see you on our next adventure into the world of knowledge.